I'm Ben Fobert, Director of Educational Services in Lammersville Unified School District, which is east of Livermore over the Altamont Pass, just before you get to Tracy. I spent 10 years as the principal of Mountain House High School. This presentation, the slides are just to help keep me on track, but there's a lot of things going on in my head, as they usually are. We had a unique opportunity in Mountain House to be able to start something from scratch. We were an elementary school district that had existed for over 100 years. And then the master plan community of Mountain House came up in our school district, and we had the opportunity to break away from Tracy Unified and build our own high school. And when we did that, I was actually a board member in Lammersville Unified School District. I was an administrator in Pleasanton at the time. And so we kind of devised our plan for world domination through the high school that would then trickle down through the K-8 schools. So I might use some of the slides, I might not. I have some notes that I've been taking throughout this to remind myself to talk about some of the things that we've talked about today. But really, if you have questions too about how we did things, this is actually part of my doctoral dissertation too that I'm finishing hopefully in December. And it's really a case study of how do you implement innovation in a system. And the biggest thing that we did when we started the high school was we didn't want the technology to be the thing in the room. We wanted it to be the tool in the room, and the human is what makes it important, which is why it's titled It's Not About the Tech, It's About the Humans. And we're leveraging technology to maximize the human potential in education. This probably looks familiar when you tell your teachers that you're going to implement some sort of new technology in the classroom. This is the look that they get on their faces. They automatically do what am I going to do now? Our teachers are navigating change constantly. New technology, new pedagogy, new ways to split our time up, new resources or less resources sometimes than we thought we had. And that can lead to this huge sense of being overwhelmed. While the integration of technology and use of technology approaches is promising, especially when we step outside of our comfort zones and embrace new ways of teaching and learning, it causes a lot of noise in the system. And so this is a very familiar look on the faces of people who, especially not from the high school, because we started with people who were ready to go. But with our K-8 folks, they kind of looked at the high school with a little bit of disdain initially. But what inspired us on our journey of innovation has actually transformed classrooms in Lammersville Unified School District, TK through 12. And the entire educational system is different now because of it. So let's see here. I'm going to go quickly through some of these because I want to get more to the what happened in our environment as opposed to the philosophy behind what happened. So we had a vision for the future. When I was on the school board, we talked a lot about, okay, what does this look like? How do we move forward with personalizing learning? We looked at blended learning approaches, what kind of blended learning approaches that we wanted to use. And we had this vision of the future. Particularly, I picked this image because it's kind of what our Learning Commons looks like. We don't call our library a library anymore. We call it a Learning Commons, and that's across the whole district now because it's more of, this is a Leilani word, an expo center of learning than it is a library. There's very few actual books in the library. We have a huge, huge digital library. It is more like a coffee shop, right? Where kids come in, there are beanbag chairs everywhere, there's round tables, there's some books, but it's mostly a place where kids can come to learn. We actually have a couple of classrooms off the side of the Learning Commons that I'll talk to you a little bit about later, where our online pathway is housed, and they're like flexible learning spaces where teachers can pull small groups or large groups to teach and facilitate learning in those places, and assessment as well. We also have an assessment center in our Learning Commons to facilitate assessment both in our online hybrid and our face-to-face classes utilize our assessment center that we staff at the high school. So all of that led to the birth of this school, Mountain House High School. And this is a picture with me and my family. My wife and I have 7 children. The oldest 3 right here, they're kids here, but these 3 have graduated, and this one's a senior this year. And so part of the push to the birth of this new school was we had moved to Mountain House in this new master plan community when very few houses were there yet. There was just the old Lammersville school and Wickland Elementary School, which is, was the very first one built in Mountain House proper when we moved in. And we had these dreams of, we're going to build something new. This is going to be something new. And the whole community was behind that. These are all people who are moving east, escaping the Bay Area, trying to find affordable housing or housing, period, right? We had moved from San Jose to San Leandro and then said, we got to get out of the Bay. Let's go further. We ended up here, and this opportunity came to be. I did not intend, when I was on the school board, to become the principal. I was actually pretty vocal about other board members trying to get jobs in the district and using their influence as a board member. I had actually publicly said it in a meeting. And then I had to eat my words when the superintendent came to me and said, the best person for this job is standing in front of me. So I had to make the rough decision to give up influence in one form to have influence in another format. And this is the front of the school. Everyone says it looks a little bit like Stanford. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But Delta College has a satellite campus just down the street from here. And it's all in portables right now because they don't have funding to build it. And everybody comes to the high school thinking they're coming to Delta College. We have to send them down the street all the time. So part of the building of the high school meant that we needed to find educators who can be empowered as teachers to be change agents. So we had to find, recruit, and retain people who weren't necessarily just tech savvy for the sake of being tech savvy, but they were change minded. So we worked a lot to develop hiring processes and procedures that included sending a whole ton of information out. It was hard to talk with HR initially and say, we're going to send every bit of information they should know about us to them, as opposed to assuming they're going to go and research us. We wanted them to know everything about us before they came. And then we wanted to know what they did with that information once we gave it to them. Did they still want to be with us? We made them submit a video of either themselves teaching or some sort of digital format of a lesson that they might teach that would fit within our one-to-one learning environment, because that's what we decided. This was a one-to-one learning environment. We would not be buying textbooks. We would be doing a lot of blended learning in all kinds of formats, and eventually moving towards hybrid and online learning opportunities as well. So that meant not only recruiting and hiring teachers who were change agents, but also providing a professional development structure in which they could be successful when they came. You can't just say, oh yeah, you're change-minded, we love you, this is great, and then say good luck. So we had to we created cohort-style professional development for, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, cohort-style professional development for teachers that started before the school opened with a 2-week training for teachers on what the heck it is that we're doing, all of the tools that we were using. So we used a learning management system. We had some online and blended learning curriculum that we purchased, and all kinds of other tools. So the other thing that we wanted to make sure that we focused on was we had an emphasis on data-driven decision-making. So professional learning communities are really important in this process. It's making sure that there is a focus on learning in a collaborative culture with collective responsibility and a results orientation. This is just one of some of the data points that we take a look at in our LCAT plan each year. It's looking at where are we. DNF rate is really big at the high school. Elementary school using DRA rates, our CASP scores, GPAs. We use NWA MAP on a regular basis 3 times a year to determine whether kids are making progress or not. We have also in our curriculum built in, we use some curriculum that has formative assessment that's built into it. So part of that is making sure that data is a big part of how we teach. And then we implemented, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we do, but just a cautionary tale. That first year that we opened, we went a little bit too far with self-pacing. Leilani's talking about how sometimes you might have a kid go all year long and they're still in Unit 1. Well, that happened to us first year, and we couldn't go forward with that. So we had to, change tack at some point. The other thing that we did was we didn't plan enough professional development into the schedule. We had a pretty traditional bell schedule with a 6-period day, one early release day where teachers were collaborating for like an hour and a half once a week. And it wasn't enough for us. So we went in search of other environments that were doing really cool things. We found a school in Merced. I can't remember the name of the school now, but they had this really cool bell schedule that we adopted that I'll talk about in a minute. But the new bell schedule allowed us to have an 8-period day that incorporated a modular period during the day for intervention and extension in the day, in addition to every teacher on campus, in addition to their prep period that they have every day, a daily release for collaboration time every single day in their department. So for example, the whole math department, 2nd period, there was no math classes on campus because the math department had their 1 period of collaboration on a daily basis. That has since rolled down to the K-8 level, down through the 4th grade now, and we're rolling it further down in the hopes that we'll get down to TK to have that daily collaboration where teachers are talking about data, they're talking about students, and engaging kids more often. Trying to go through this part fast because I want to get into the what. We talked a little bit about attracting and retaining talent. So part of that in the professional development realm is that in Lammersville Unified School District, when you get hired as a new teacher, whether you are new to teaching or not, we have a new hire academy that every teacher takes part in. Even if you're straight out of college or you've taught for 15 years, you are part of the New Hire Academy, and a part of that professional development is intentionally creating a cohort of individuals with all kinds of levels of proficiency in teaching, but inculcating them into the Lammersville way. They know what we expect. Yeah, you may know what you expect as a teacher from a previous district, but we're going to say, this is the Lammersville way. Here's how we do it here. This is how we look. This is how we run our PLCs. This is how we do it. In addition to creating other opportunities for continuing teachers in the organization, we have something called the Blended Learning Academy. And that is another professional development that is a cohort style of professional development, where during the school year, teachers engage in activities to teach them more about how to further blend and use blended learning strategies in their classroom. My wife was actually in the Blended Learning Academy last year. I encouraged her to do it, and she kind of rolled her eyes. And after she did it, she's like, it's the best professional development that I've ever done. It's in district. It's a cohort of peers. We work together on this. We did presentations in one another's classroom, and it's a really valuable way to have professional development. Okay, in the middle of it all, we opened the high school in 2013-14, and in 2020, we closed because of the pandemic. And part of what happened during the pandemic was there are many schools all over the country who had a big, huge hiccup. They were not prepared. Lammersville Unified was prepared. Every kid had a device already. Teachers already knew how to use blended learning pedagogy because it's part of the New Hire Academy. We closed down for 2 days and we opened back up like nothing happened. And now UC Berkeley is coming to us, and we're part of a research study because when you look at the achievement scores, we're one of the districts nationwide who did not show any significant learning loss for our students over that period of time. So it was so what we did helped us with that. And I'm getting to the what we did. Okay, let's talk a little bit about leveraging the technology to maximize human potential. So first, students in our district have access to personalized learning, real-time feedback, creativity and collaboration, and teachers are equipped with the tools and skills to provide differentiated learning, intervention, and inclusive learning environments. So let me give you an example of one of the things that we did. One of the things that we really felt was necessary to create an equitable opportunities for all students. This is the EPIC Academy. It was one of the first things that we did to help our students in our small district who were credit deficient. So in a traditional environment, you'd create an alternative education school. You'd send those kids off to recover credits, and there are some really great schools that do that. Obviously, here in this district, there's an award-winning school, but we really felt like those kids didn't need to leave the high school to recover their credits. So we created an academy within the high school where the students didn't leave the campus. Their schedule was changed. They didn't have the same bell schedule as the other students. They only came 3 days of the week. Those 3 days of the week, there was a combination of in-person instruction and online instruction for credit recovery purposes. And the other 2 days of the week were called Leave to Learn days, where they were set up with internships. We had one student who worked at the animal shelter. We had another student who worked at a tire company. We had other students who we went to the local Honda dealership and we said, we need to set these kids up with internships. What do you need? And the owner said, oh, you know what our salespeople hate is they've sold a car, and when they've sold it, they can't get back out to the sales floor because they have to teach the customer how to use their new computer, right? Because the car is a computer. Well, these kids are computer savvy. They can figure out how the car works. And so they set our kids up at the Honda dealership. Once the car was sold, the kid would teach the new owner of this car how to use it so that the salesperson can get back out to the sales floor. So we had all kinds of partnerships like that. And those kids stayed on our campus, which meant they had the same access to the high school as every other student. They didn't go to another school and now they can't go to homecoming. They didn't go to another school and now they can't be on the football team. They didn't go to another school and now they can't be in the marching band. They stayed in our school. They were able to access what they needed to using blended learning, online learning, internships. And then the other thing that we did is we incorporated other credit recovery options for those students that included credit for going to regular counseling with a counselor and meeting their counseling goals. Things like that were done so that these students could stay on our campus, address those credit deficiencies, and stay on campus. And so it was a huge win for us. It I believe, is up for a Golden Bell Award this year, the CSBA Golden Bell Award. And so that's a great program that we do. A couple of other things that we do. We also have an early college pathway. And again, our belief with these was we're not building new schools. We're not sending kids out of here. This is, we call it the Mustang Ohana. It is our family. They're going to stay here and we're going to provide these pathways for students within the environment that we already have. So our Delta College partnership for our early college pathway, Delta College is just down the street. We were able to leverage our bell schedule that I'll talk about in a minute to be able to let kids leave campus at part of the day if they need to, or schedule their day so that it ends earlier so they can go down the street, or to take online classes with Delta College. And we have to date, I believe, about 36 kids since the opening of the early college pathway who have graduated before the graduation, high school graduation day. They get their AA the day before high school graduation. and they're off to four-year colleges and universities as a junior. Some of the other things that we do, we have 8 CTE pathways at the high school, from biomedical to computer science, media arts, graphic arts, dance, culinary, engineering, and something else, business. So those are our 8 pathways. We have in each pathway 1 or 2 full-time teachers in every single one of those pathways that are providing a pathway for these kids where they're getting pathway completion upon graduation, and in most cases they're getting some sort of certification before they leave. We have had in the past, and it kind of went away during COVID, but we had a CCNA Academy where students were taking CCNA 1 and 2 at the high school, partnering with Delta to take CCNA 3, and then upon the end of that, if they pass the test, they become a certified network administrator, and they can go straight from high school into the workforce, making $75,000 a year. And so we have all these CTE pathways. We have career technical student organizations partnered with all of those pathways that help our students get further experience, and their award-winning pathways. We take hundreds of kids every year to DECA, HOSA, Skills USA, and other organizations. Robotics Club goes and competes. We have Girls Who Code Club on our campus. Female, all of our computer science teachers are female, and they really spearheaded our female students. In fact, the female enrollment in the computer science pathway is larger than the male enrollment at our school. So it's pretty cool. Let me talk a little bit about our bell schedule that I've been mentioning about. So we have an 8-period day. Students are required to take 7, because one of those 8 periods is the success period. It's not an actual credit-bearing period. So that means during the school day, and somebody said earlier about, well, you can't have kids unsupervised on campus. And I remember when I went to this school in Merced, I said, well, you can't have your kids just unsupervised. And the principal said, why? And I was like, I don't know, because nobody else does it. Well, it works. They have a flexible period in the day. So if you have a kid who's got 6 or 7 periods in the day, one of them is success, but they have an open period, they go to the Learning Commons, and there's a credentialed librarian in there who is supervising students, and you have campus supervisors who are monitoring. And the question always is, well, what if they're a troublemaker? And I say, then they don't have a flex period anymore, do they? We assign them to a class like academic study skills or something that takes up that time, so they're not being a problem during that time. To this day, 11 years later, we have never had a problem with a kid on a flex period, because they know that can get taken away from them. They would rather go to the Learning Commons and sleep on a beanbag chair than they would to be in an academic study skills class. So that also allowed us to work into the day, that success period, where every student, so we have a computer program called Flex Time, used to be called Flex Time Manager, where that period is actually modular each day. So the students have to check at 10:30 each day before the success period where they're supposed to go that day, and the teachers use the data coming out of their common formative assessments, and they're pulling kids in as they need. So when they're not, when they're leaving class and it's clear that the kid's not getting fractions, then they're going to pull that kid in or that group of kids in on a specific day. It's a priority-based computer system where we do have priority days for specific departments, but you can pull kids in. You can give them voice and choice if they're doing well. They don't need to go anywhere. They can have extended lunch period because it's backed right up against the lunch period during the day. The other thing that we have is we do have a fairly flexible, not just with those flex periods, a fairly flexible school day and in the environment where it's engaging students. So one of the things that we have is we have a hybrid and an online pathway. So what our hybrid pathway is, a student, as long as they meet the instructional minutes during the day, a student can take a couple of classes online and the rest face-to-face. So I'll give you an example of one of my daughters. My daughter just did not like math face to face. She didn't like it because she needed to hear it again and again and again and again. We use Imagine Edgenuity as our online courseware. And so for her entire high school career, she took math online because she could go back and watch it again. And what we do is the teacher who teaches that class, there's an actual teacher who's assigned to a section of the class with the students assigned to it. And as long as those students are on pace, those kids never have to come to class. If they fall off the pace, they're required to come in for intervention. And then my daughter, when she would have a problem with a concept that she wasn't getting, she could come in during that class period because the teacher's sitting in an empty room or with very few students to provide intervention for that student in the moment, and then they move on. And it meant that she, who was an athlete, a three-sport athlete, could work ahead and not be so stressed out about what was happening today in class and, oh my gosh, I've missed out on that instruction. No, it was right there for her to access again. So, yes.
Does that mean your teachers had to build ahead?
No, because we used the online curriculum. So the teacher was the facilitator of the online curriculum. So teachers were very familiar with the curriculum itself, so that if a kid came in at any time, they could go in and be like, "Oh, it's this concept. We're gonna do a review with the kids on that."
Very much lecture or Socratic questioning, discussion hours?
Only when they saw that a group of students, so you could go into that curriculum and run reports and say, oh, there's a bunch of kids who are having a problem with this specific lesson. They would pull groups of kids. Oh, these 5 kids are having a problem with. They'd pull them in and they would have a conversation and some instruction around that specific topic so that, they were addressing in the moment what was needed.
So you're using courseware as core?
Yes, in some instances, yes. Wow. So for those online classes, all those online classes have a dedicated teacher in the class, even though the teacher is not actually preparing anything. They're using that online curriculum as the core curriculum in that class. And we made sure we went through actually to look at our face-to-face curriculum next to our online courseware, and we made sure that they were matching so that if a kid were unsuccessful in this math class and we needed to move them back into the face-to-face environment, it was a seamless move from one to the other. And vice versa. So we've had kids who would get sick and had to go on home hospital or whatever it is, and they didn't want a home hospital teacher. They just wanted to do homeschooling. And so they would seamlessly transfer into the online classes and continue on like nothing. And when they were better, they would come back and it would be seamless for them.
A lot of logistics.
Lots of logistics. It took a couple of years to get that. That was not immediate. This is, 10 years in the making. So alongside the hybrid pathway, let me give you one more example about hybrid. This is kind of a different hybrid example. We have an adulting class at our high school. That's a required graduation requirement. Thank goodness, because now the state's going to make us do financial education, and a huge piece of our adulting, half of the year in the adulting class is we use Dave Ramsey's financial piece curriculum. And so what happened this year is our population is growing so large. We were built for 2,200 and we're almost 2,500. So we're running out of space. So what we did is we actually turned our adulting class, which is in Canvas. It's a Canvas-built, self-built course. And because we don't have space for those kids, we turned the class into a hybrid class. So it means that we don't need as much classroom space because we say, okay, this group of kids is meeting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and this group of kids is meeting Tuesday, Thursday, and then we swap days. So they've made a calendar throughout the year so that we can use the same classroom space for 2 classes at the same time. So it's hybrid the other way in that it's still a face-to-face class. You still have to come in, but we had to reduce the number of days they came into that class period so that they could, we had the space for it. So, yes. Okay. So the last couple of things, just go forward. I would say one of the last things, we also have a fully online pathway. It's based on an independent study model. All the students are on independent study contracts, but they do have a teacher for each one of their classes, just like the hybrid classes. So if a kid gets off track, then a teacher calls them in. If they're off track, they're actually required to come face to face. It's like the punishment for not doing your work, right? You fall off track, you're required to come in until you're back on track and above a C or above in the class. So again, with that fully online pathway, one thing I will say about that is the homeschooling thing is that one of the reasons why we developed the online pathway is I had friends who were homeschooling their kids, and I was seeing them miss out on school, on social environment. Sure, they were part of these extended homeschooling networks, but they weren't getting the same thing as being on the water polo team or in the marching band. And so we have seen a huge influx of our students who were homeschooling kids. Every one of my friends whose kids were homeschooled are now in the district online pathway, which is a homeschooling of a kind, and so they can participate together in that in all of those extracurricular activities. So I'll end with 11 years later, and it's not just the high school. I know I talked a lot about high school because that was my life for 10 years. You see up here some of the things that we use district-wide. You also see that the high school and several of the K-8 schools have been California Distinguished Schools, Golden Bell Award winners multiple times, once for our early college program, the Epic Academy, and some other professional development. We do a walking and talking instruction protocol that is a district-wide protocol for professional development that has been successful. We use Project Lead the Way as our project-based curriculum for engineering and computer science. And really, we've set up a legacy of innovation. The little story I'll tell you is this group of kids right here. So we first opened our ELOP program this last school year, the Extended Learning Opportunity Program for our TK through 6 students. And this is a group of our computer science students who created a company to help come and teach students robotics in our ELOP program. So they wanted us to pay them, and we said, how about we be your test market and you do an internship for us. So they interned over this last summer and taught robotics to our ELOP kids. And they are now online. They've incorporated themselves and are starting to provide opportunities for local students in their new company from the computer science program at the high school. So all that being said, there's a lot there. There's a lot more too. If you ever are interested in all the things that we've done to create an expo center of learning, to really personalize the learning in schools and trying to march forward towards some of these other ideas, part of it is you just got to step into it. You got to step into it and be brave. You got, when you fall flat on your face, be able to get up and have a plan moving forward. It's been a great ride, and I love working with other people if you're interested in any of that. So thank you so much.